Hi, welcome to today's session called Build the Story. Today we're going to be connecting literature and STEAM using KEVA Planks and other loose parts. First, a little bit about me. My name is Amy Scheel, as I mentioned, and I'm the CEO of KEVA Planks. Right off the bat, I'll let you know that you do not need KEVA Planks in order to use any of the activities that we're going to talk about today. You can use other loose parts. We'll get more to that in a moment. A fun fact about me is that I was part of the first cohort studying youth and social innovation at the School of Education and Human Development at the University of Virginia. So these are subjects that I'm very passionate about, with being on the cutting edge of how we can help kids thrive. And another fun fact, my play personality, if you're not familiar with those, you can look up Stuart Brown. He has developed 8 play personalities, and mine happens to be the explorer. So I love to imagine and go learn new things. I'm very curious and will dig deep into a subject to figure out all I can about it. So as I mentioned, you do not need to have KEVA Planks in order to do these activities. Some other ideas of loose parts that you can use are listed here. You can use popsicles, sticks, whatever found objects you happen to have available should work fine. Of course, I'm a little bit biased to KEVA Planks, and some of the reasons for that are that they are very inclusive. If you can find loose parts that are gender neutral, so that it doesn't seem like they're suited better for one gender or the other, then that kind of frees up the whole classroom to feel like they are able to be involved in the activity. Another benefit of these is that they're very disability friendly. For both motor disabilities or neurodiversity, having an object to play with just generally gives students something to focus on other than just the peer-to-peer interaction. So if you have students who are less comfortable engaging with their peers, if they have personality or behavioral disorders, then these should be friendly activities for them. And then as well as physical disabilities, stacking is very simple, and so students can build at whatever level they're comfortable with. So even if that's just putting one piece on top of another and talking about what it represents to them, that is totally a success in our book. If you can find loose parts that don't glue together, then you get the benefit of being able to reuse them. You don't have to spend your budget on them year after year. And lastly, with KEVA Planks at least, every piece is exactly the same, so then you don't have to worry about students jockeying to get one piece that somebody has. There's no scarcity crises. So those are just some notes on however you might go about choosing the objects that you use. So today's basic lesson plan follows just 4 steps. First, you start with reading something. And you can use the same prompt for whether you're talking about stuff that students have read by themselves, or you've read as a group in class, or instructional study materials. We can talk more about that in a moment. And you're going to use the same basic prompt over and over, and it applies to virtually anything. And then you give the students time to build, and then time to share about what they've built. So we'll just dive right in with an example. The prompt that we're basing this on is just build something that represents any part of a story. And so I will go ahead and start building now. You can look at what I'm building. I am going to build the stacks from Ready Player One. It's a book I read not too long ago, and I just watched the movie more recently, and I thought it had some really interesting architecture with the way that they connected the housing units. And so maybe if you read Ready Player One as a class, you could talk about what the world looks like now versus what the book predicts it will look like in the future. Or if you did watch the movie, then you could talk about the difference between how the book portrayed the setting versus the movie, and do kind of a comparison of that. And especially with this book, since it is in a real setting, at least in the movie, it was Columbus, Ohio. I don't remember exactly if that was where it was in the book. But yeah, so you can have students create their own representations of what they thought it looked like based on the book. Or this might just be somebody who read this in their free time and they're talking about the future world that the book creates. So this is where I'm going to stop for now. So it's very simple, but it kind of gets at the very vertical world that is created when there's kind of overpopulation and everybody's staying inside. There's a lot of climbing from one unit to the other, and people just kind of living on top of each other. Maybe if I had plenty of time or plenty of blocks, I would do more buildings somewhere, and you could do this with a whole class if you wanted. So I was kind of talking about my structure while I built it, so I won't do a specific share out section. Here are a couple other examples of stories that your students might come up with or different ways that this might play out. Some examples, I mentioned that you can use this for instructional learning. So if a student is studying ancient Rome or ancient Greece, whatever, then they might look up the architecture that's present there and then build a replica of it and talk about the main things about what makes this Roman architecture versus Greek versus Chinese. And they might talk specifically about the pillars in the Parthenon, or the different ways they put the steps here versus there. And then when you get down to like the more simple things, like Charlotte's Web, you can, for example, see that with Charlotte's Web, you can have students just make a giant spider web, or you could try writing some pig on there, just like they have it in the book, and talk about the different letters. And so that's a fun way to bring the story to life. Or we have Curious George and the zoo, and you can bring in other objects. Like in this picture, it shows various zoo animals, and so that can be a fun way to make it really come to life a bit more. These prompts work very easily regardless of age, so you don't have to worry about a child who is very young. They can still push blocks or whatever loose parts you're using. They can make a road out of it, they can make a map, and you can use your imagination to fill in the gaps of what might be missing from a more simplistic or abstract structure. And so that's kind of helping build those imagination neurons anyway. These prompts also work with older students. So if you can find something that isn't innately childish, then it should open it up so that older students aren't embarrassed to be playing with blocks. It can feel like a very mature activity. And you can see that there's great variation between the amount of detail that somebody can go into based on how much time they have or how many blocks, whatever is available for your specific classroom. So some of the reasons why this works really well are that it does help pull the student into the story in a way that if a person is having trouble with the concept of world building that comes along with engaging in literature, then this is a way to represent the story much more physically. It does activate the imagination and helps kind of work those muscles. And it also, for students who might not be inclined to engage with STEM and STEAM subjects, it gives them a reason to build. So this is both for the students who are maybe excelling at literature and need a way to integrate STEM subjects into their learning experience, as well as for students who are really into STEAM subjects, and this provides them a way to understand kind of the storytelling aspects that can link in to participating in a STEAM activity. And lastly, this provides scaffolding to help students remember the story, so you're getting to lock it into the brain in a different way than being written word or even visual, because it's a 3D representation that they can walk around and engage with and really feel like they're a part of it. Digging in a little bit more into the prompt itself, this prompt of build something that represents any part of the story is very evergreen. You can reuse it over and over again, and each story is going to have it apply in a different way. And even with using the same story, various students might take that in a different direction. So you're never going to end up with a classroom full of 20 identical structures. Each student is going to have something unique that is their take on the story, and it gives you an easy way to have them each say something different about what they've built. And that can be just such a validating experience to know that the whole class has experienced the same story and then recognizes the different viewpoint that each person is bringing to it. You can also come up with other prompt ideas. I'll give you a couple more at the very end of this session, and you can go as short or as long as you want. This one is on the short side. You can do, like one of the other prompts I'll talk about is just build a place to live, or you can go much, much longer and do kind of a full unit building out a complex story and talking about the setting and all sorts of things. You can come back to it day after day. You can take pictures in the meantime. So there is a lot of flexibility. It's definitely ideal if you can keep it open-ended. That allows students to not compare themselves apples to apples. That allows the students to take it in whatever direction interests them, makes it much easier on you, less prep work required, no complex which wording am I going to use for this, and just provides a lot of opportunity for the students to have autonomy in deciding what they're going to build. Okay, so then the next part. You have done your reading, you've given them the prompt, and now it's time to build. I would probably recommend, at least when you're getting started, build after you've done the reading. But if your students have gotten comfortable with this concept, then you could probably transition into doing some sort of live, you're reading a story or actively talking about things while you build, and that might be a cool experience for your classroom. And you can also do this in teams, partners, or individuals, depending on what your goals are, and the energy level of your class on that day. And something important to note is that students will build or play as long as they have materials available. So you'll want to keep rotating around the room and acknowledging what students have built. And that is partially helpful for you because you can evaluate what they're understanding from the story. So just from that perspective, it's helpful. But also, if each student only has 20 planks and they have already built a thing, then they're going to want to stop and capture that moment in time, either with a picture or with having it acknowledged, so that it isn't just poof, gone once they destroy their creation. And so you can either do kind of short spurts where they might have 3 minutes to build something, and then you go around and kind of rapid fire talk to each person. Or you can do a really extensive building day if you have plenty of planks available. 45 to 60 minutes should be able to give really, really lots of opportunity for building. If you are using KEVA Planks, generally we recommend at least about 100 planks per student, but if your budget only allows for 20 planks per student, that is still a perfectly fine place to start, and there are a lot of things that you can build with 20 planks per student. You just might not be able to build for half an hour because they will stop once they've reached the limit of their planks. And one other idea is if your students are comfortable either checking the planks out or taking them home, or if you have recording devices available, then they could also take video and make a presentation that integrates that in some way. So this slide has a lot of words on it, but it's really just getting at all of the different benefits of what's ignited when you're doing these activities. So it does hit pretty much all of the STREAM acronym subjects where they are learning how to innovate and how to design and how to observe and improve things. And they are also getting to engage with their fellow classmates and practice social and emotional things where it's going to be frustrating when they go to build something and it falls down And so they get to build resilience with that. Something we hear from a lot of teachers and parents who use KEVA Planks or even just participate in loose parts play is that it can be a really great opportunity for students to slow down, and it becomes almost meditative to be placing one block on top of the other. And if you're having to engage your balancing skills as well, then you can't be rowdy in that moment. So it's providing an opportunity for the student to just concentrate on the present moment, what's in front of them, kind of breathe deeply, and move with care. For sharing, our favorite open-ended phrase is "tell me about what you've built." That is just a great way to kind of leave it up to them to take it whatever direction they want to go. This is a great moment for you to assess the student's understanding of the story and what they've been reading, what their comprehension was of the story, and even if they've just built a very specific moment in the story, you can ask them, and what happened after that? Or, wow, that's such an interesting moment. What was going on that made that happen? And just, you can dig deeper to find out, were they really grasping the story, and what do we need to focus on? And this doesn't have to just happen at the end when they're sharing. These are also conversations that you can have while you're walking around the room and observing and validating whatever it is that each student is working on. And as I mentioned, this is also a really great opportunity for students to work on communicating with each other or communicating one-to-many. I know that with the pandemic, communication and social skills have really taken quite a hit, and so this is a very low-stakes way to practice communication because it gives you something else to look at. If eye contact is really hard, then it kind of gives you something else to distract your brain from the task at hand. Okay, so a couple other prompts that you can mix into your loose parts and literacy. One is to practice letters. So you can assign each student a letter and just have them build, how would you build an A? And they might start out making it flat like this, or they might do some mixture, some on edge. Someday your students might end up even trying to put them more vertical and experiment with that. So again, they can build it at whatever level is appropriate for them. And then you can talk about the difference between each letter. So what makes this an A and not an H? And okay, all of a sudden that's an H. That's interesting. What's so H-like about this? Is this a capital H? How might we make this into a lowercase h? Maybe I would take this one away, or maybe I would go like this. Does that still look like a lowercase h? I think it could. And then you could say, can you build something that starts with an H? And maybe they'll build a house. And their house might be super simple. That might be enough. Or it might be something a lot more complex. So it just gives you another way to connect your letters together. You could even take pictures of each letter individually and make a class alphabet. You could have all the students work on the same letter, or each student works on a different one, all those different combinations of things. So another prompt is to build a world. And this might be a world from a book that you've read, like how I was working with Ready Player One, or it might be a new world that you imagine up as a class. And so you can talk through the setting and the characters who might appear in that world that you've created, and you can brainstorm what types of buildings might be there. We need a grocery store, we need resources, so should we include trees? Is there going to be water? How do people make their living here? And so you can brainstorm through all of those things to make sure that you have plenty of breadth of the setting represented. And then you can say, okay, now we're going to imagine a story that's taking place in this world. You can talk about plot, you can talk about the characters, you can brainstorm all the different characters and have each student kind of work out what that character's plot might be. And so that can be a great way to make sure that you've got a wide swath of occupations and types of people represented. Or you can have your students imagine that they are a reporter in this world that you've created, and what kinds of stories might they be reporting on, and then write up a paragraph about that. So these are just a couple ideas. You can build whatever world you want, a historical one, a future one, a real one. You can make a map and show the geography of it. You could even map out a timeline using the loose parts as kind of markers for where you are in this moment in time. And lastly, you can have students tell a story while they build. So this is an opportunity for them to kind of come up with things off the top of their head. You can do it popcorn style, where you're all working on the same story at once, and each person uses a loose part to represent whatever the next step in the story is that they're adding. So then they can practice kind of those improv techniques. Another idea is that you can have them think of something that is meaningful to them and make an abstract structure. And so that will really stretch the brain to work on an abstract concept as opposed to one that is very straightforward, like a house. And so that can also be an opportunity to learn more about your students' lives and what matters to them. And so that's just about all I have. Other resources are available at KEVAPlanks.com. If you go to the Educators tab on KEVAPlanks.com, you'll see that there is, in the little drop down, you get an option to download a free educator's guide, and that has a complete free lesson plan book that you can use with Loose Parts Play or with KEVA Planks, and I hope that can be a really great useful resource for you. So in summary, I hope you can use some of these ideas to help create good scaffolding to help your students engage with literacy and literature and STEAM together, and really strengthen all of those subjects by combining them into one cohesive learning experience. Thanks so much for joining me.